Today's agenda is pretty packed. We're going to be talking about the AI fueled threat landscape. We're going to be talking about World Password Day and survey results associated with that. We have a cool new feature with our Android client, dynamic colors, and coming soon, previewing new iOS integrations. I'll be talking about how to travel safely using Bitwarden. We'll be discussing how to unlock the browser extension with biometrics, always helpful, and we'll answer some community questions. So, like I said, feel free to join in either in chat or we can bring you up on stage if you have any questions throughout. Totally meant to be an interactive experience with you guys. Any initial questions before we get started? All right. Well, we'll dive in. Our first topic is the latest threat news and research by Vivian.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Next slide. So just to kick things off today, this is on the right-hand side. This is actually a fake applicant that I received in email a couple weeks back, and I almost opened the resume, but I didn't. Thankfully, forwarded it to our people ops recruiting team just to check, and everyone, people confirmed that this is probably fake. And as I was looking into this, I learned that just over the past few months, there has been a pretty big spike of fake applicants, especially for engineering roles. These scammers are finding willing participants, engineers, usually outside of the US. They work with them to set up a fake resume, professional headshots, websites, LinkedIn profiles. The engineer pretends to be in the US and they get paid for passing interviews. And if they get a job, then they actually do the work for the company. And then the scammers get a cut of the US pay because they're getting paid more. And so according to Gartner, it looks like they're estimating 1 in 4 applicants will be fake by 2028. And this is not great. This is hurting real candidates looking for a new job. Job search is already pretty challenging, and so this hurts the candidates that are real candidates that are looking for real jobs. It also bogs down recruiters. I found out one recruiter even had a LinkedIn application where when the recruiter did more research, they saw that the profile pic was a stock picture from an Walmart ad. So if you are seeing these things, just be sure to take a closer look at their LinkedIn profile. It could look legit at a glance, but always dig a little deeper, check the creation date, look at the about profile. If you do conduct interviews, if you are in a hiring manager position, definitely ask cultural questions. So sometimes they will say they're from a specific city, but oftentimes they're not. They're actually based in a different country. So ask, if this person says they're from Boston, ask a little bit about Boston, like what's your favorite restaurant or cafe? And then obviously in person is best. So especially as AI tech advances, really the only way to know that a person is who they say they are is to see them face to face. So this isn't really a threat-related, a very tangential threat-related topic, but last month I talked about Telegram. This is the very popular encrypted messaging platform where cyber criminals often go to run their business. This piece of news caught my eye. The CEO, his name is Pavel Durov, was in the news recently, and apparently this guy's been spending years sending his biomaterial to random women for insemination. And it caught news attention because he has announced that he is going to bequeath his $17 billion fortune to his 106 plus children. And he plans to open source his DNA so his children can find him. So very eccentric person. Romance scams. So if you are like most people, and these two texts are examples that our team member Ryan shared with us, and people have been attempting to scam him into romance. So chances are you may have received a text or a chat message from a stranger. It could open with a simple hi or what seems like a good-natured confusion about why your phone number seems to be in this person's address books. There's a number of ways that these scammers are trying to engage you. And this is something that the type of text that you would be getting. So as I looked into this, I realized that there's actually a term for these types of scams. It's called pig butchering. These messages are not accidental. They are the first step in a process that's intended to basically conduct fraud and to steer you into giving away your money. And the victims are then coached to invest more and more money into what appears to be legitimate platforms, but they're not. Recently, this is good news. The US government has put sanctions on a company called Funnel Technologies, which has been a big provider of computer infrastructures that power these types of scams and scam websites. This funnel allowed these scammers to basically quickly change domain names and IP addresses when the legitimate providers attempt to take those websites down. So this company has been put on a sanction, which is good news. Maybe a little bit of background. Dawn, feel free to chime in. I know I think you listened to a whole podcast around this. The darker side to this, which is really sad, is that these criminal syndicates are practicing kind of a new form of human trafficking where they prey on victims looking for work, lure them into a phony job ad, and they're forced into defrauding people all around the world. And if they resist, they get punished for that. So it is a very dark and sad situation here. But good news that this company has been caught, and hopefully more of these scams will be minimized. And I think that is it for me. Just, don't want to end on a negative note, but tips on how to protect yourself. So this is something that's similar to what I shared last month. So always verify independently. So create, especially with AI fueled scams that are on the increase, create some kind of a secret independent phrase or code words with colleagues, with friends, with family members. Always be very skeptical of urgent requests, and obviously strengthen your authentication. Use 2FA, use unique passwords for all your accounts, but also share what you know. Security is a team sport, so always, if you're in a position to, please collaborate, create meaningful impact, and help others be secure. Thanks all.
Thanks, Vivian. That was all quite interesting and kind of scary, but we definitely have some practical tips to keep you guys safe out there. All right, now on to Casey, who will discuss World Password Day and the survey.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I realize we kind of have like two very industry related themes and just kind of themes in terms of security worldwide. So bear with me. I promise that we're going to get into some of the product information after this topic. But I wanted to chat a little bit about the World Password Day. And if we go to the next slide, this is a global survey that Bitwarden conducts on an annual basis in honor of World Password Day. So, this day is really about raising awareness about the importance of strong passwords and protecting your online accounts. And to kind of celebrate this day, right, Bitwarden conducts a worldwide survey. Specifically, this time we focused on generational trends between different kinds of password best practices and how different generations behave online. And so I found some of these insights really interesting. And if we go to the next slide, I'm curious, before we dive into some of these results, what the general audience thinks, if there's any kind of preconceived notions of different generations as they interact online. So, Chris, if you could please launch the poll, I would love to hear from everyone in the audience about which generation they think is most likely to reuse an existing password after a data breach. Yeah, I'm going to just give it a second as we see some of these responses roll in. Looks like Boomer is the top assumption right now. So the older generations being most likely to reuse an existing password. Gen Z is following right behind. Wow. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for responding. Okay, I think we'll stop there. I mean, keep responding as you'd like. Looks like we have the majority of people assuming that boomers actually reuse their existing password after a data breach, but they're actually the least likely to, which is crazy. So definitely some preconceived notions there. Gen Z is actually the most likely to reuse an existing password after a data breach, which is really interesting considering that they're the first generation to really grow up with the internet being readily available. So you would think that they might have some better password practices compared to some of their older generations, but that's not necessarily the case. As we go to the next slide as well, they don't only reuse their password, they also don't update passwords after a data breach as well. So even after it's been compromised, they do not make that change, with 35% of Gen Z having this poor password practice. We also find that Gen Z typically forgets their passwords to important accounts, and they rely heavily on the password reset function compared to their other older generations. So, really interesting that, well, they're the youngest generation, typically some of the most tech savvy, but they still have these really poor password practices. We go to the next slide too. I would also love to kind of poll everyone on their thoughts for this topic. Which generation do you think is most likely to rely on memory for their passwords? Once you kind of respond to this, we'll dive into some different types of password management practices and how that differs throughout generations, which I think is very interesting. So a lot of these password practices are not necessarily secure, but it's very interesting to see how different generations have different practices for this. Okay, let's see. Looks like Gen Z and Gen X are tied right now. Oh, Gen Z is most likely to rely on memory for their passwords. Okay, yeah, just as a reminder, the poll is on the right-hand side of your screen, and it looks like a couple of different bars in a box, so keep responding. Right now, everyone thinks Gen Z is most likely. Gen X is following right behind. Same thing with Boomer. Millennials right now is the least likely to rely on memory for their passwords, according to our audience.
I think we're all responding based on the survey results that you've shown. I think we
I
were all
know. Yeah,
thinking that
I think
boomers
that's
would
kind
be
of impacted our
yeah,
our
we were thinking
opinions.
boomers would be the least
Yeah.
password savvy, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, going to the next slide. So, millennials are actually most likely to rely on their memory for passwords, which is interesting because according to our poll, that was the least likely that we all assumed. So, definitely some preconceived notions there. Baby boomers, I don't think that this is a surprise. They're most likely to rely on pen and paper. And well, Gen Z, right, clearly does not have strong password best practices according to the data I showed earlier. They're most likely to be using a password management software, where 46% of Gen Z saying that they use a password management software. But they also are more likely to use email and digital documents for storing their passwords. But very interesting. I never thought that millennials would be most likely to use their memory for password management. Last poll, I promise. Who do we think is the generation that's most likely to lock out family members from streaming accounts by changing a password? This is actually pretty common. I've definitely heard of people doing this to other people as well, as a lot of people share passwords across different streaming accounts.
Is this on purpose or by accident?
This is on purpose, so
No.
intentionally trying to lock out family members, friends, maybe exes in a relationship, right? Changing that password to a streaming account to prevent them from accessing it and forcing them to have to buy their own subscription. Great. Yeah. From the audience, it looks like Gen Z is most likely. Same with millennials. No one thinks boomers do this. Only one vote for Gen X. Okay. Yeah. Keep those results coming in. But I'm going to jump to the next slide. So we were right this time, which is great. It was about time, right? Gen Z and millennials are most likely to change a password to lock out a friend or family member from a streaming service, specifically as an emotional response to something that they did. So as you can see, 44% of Gen Z has said that they've done this in the past, and 34% of millennials. And so, as you think about helping your friends, your family members, your neighbors, maybe your significant other, helping them have more secure password practices, maybe think about some of these data points I've shared here today, and that might impact how you educate them, right? If they're a millennial and they're typically using memory for their passwords, how can you help them do that more securely and help them reduce reuse of passwords and maybe help them start using a password manager? So, definitely something to keep in mind as you're having these conversations with people in your life. You can check out the full results for this password day survey at bitwarden.com/resources/password world password day. And I will put this link in the chat as well. I only shared a small portion of what we found in that survey. So feel free to check that out if you're more interested in different password practices across the different generations. But that was all I had here for today. Yeah, I agree. Just looking at the comments, very interesting spread. Yeah, very interesting results. So thank you
Yeah,
for coming along on this journey with me.
yeah. Thank you for sharing, Casey. Some of these results are very counterintuitive, so really appreciate you sharing this. Now on to Ryan on our team. We'll discuss a new feature coming to that have officially launched on Android.
Yeah, it's already out. First, can everybody hear me all right? It's my first time talking today. Yes, awesome, great. Yeah, dynamic colors has now come to our Android users. So this is actually a really cool feature. If we come take a look at the next slide, you can now have the Bitwarden Vault will adapt and adjust its colors based on your desktop background, desktop phone background. So depending on which background you have, you can set it up so that your vault will match that too. And so this uses the Google Material U framework, which if you have compatible apps, everything will end up having the same theme and look. And so this is really neat. So if you for people who are into this sort of thing, where you have like a nice consistent theme across your entire phone, it looks really nice. And the way you do this is that you need to make sure you have the settings selected in Android. Depending on your phone manufacturer, the setting might be called Material U, it might be called Dynamic Colors, it might be called Color Palette. What will happen is that based on the background, the Android operating system will choose or generate, I think, 4 or 5 different like little color palettes. You pick one of those that you like, and then you go to the Bitwarden app into the settings, appearances, and turn it on there. And so you can actually do some really cool things with this. So right here, you kind of see based on our magic background color here, similar to what Chris has as his background right now. We just have that here in the as a phone desktop, and you see it's pulled out this nice, beautiful red, and you can turn it on to both dark and light modes. But on the next slide, some of our more legacy users might be used to some of our older classic themes. RIP Nord, my favorite, which is over here. You can actually choose a background that will emulate those colors from the past theme. So we have Nord, Solarized Dark, and True Black. And some people might be really excited about True Black because if you have a true zero black background on your phone, Bitwarden will adopt it too, and this will bring the mythical Super AMOLED dark screen for battery and performance when the people care about eking every little last bit of power out of pixels. So you can even do that too. If you are interested in downloading those and seeing some other examples, here is the blog, putting it here in chat, so you can go check that out. And I will take to iterate again that this is Android only. However, coming soon to iOS, you guys aren't going to get left out too. There's some really cool integrations, and this is actually something that Casey's working on, but I'm giving her voice a rest after going over the World Password Day stuff. There's some really cool stuff coming to iOS, which is additional app intents. integration. So you'll be able to use Siri, create shortcuts, and use Spotlight search within Bitwarden. And there's a couple of really cool actions that you can do here. So you can see there's a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different actions that you can have Bitwarden do within iOS outside of the application. And shortcuts actually gives you some pretty cool things that you can do. If we look at the next slide here, one of the things you can do is you can have iOS listen for a key phrase and then have it perform an action. So you can say, if I receive this text, to make Bitwarden log out. So if you say, log me out of all accounts now, this might be in a scenario in which like you've lost your phone or it has been stolen from you. You can text your phone and have it automatically log out. In a similar vein, you'd be able to set up so that it can automatically log out of Bitwarden when airplane mode is turned on. So phone thieves, one of the first things they might do is turn on airplane mode so that your phone can't get the command to do a remote wipe. Well, if you do that and set this up on your operating system, you would be able to have it log out of your Bitwarden account right away to make sure that everything is nice and locked tight. And then another thing is that you could do the same thing for Siri. So you can say, hey, Siri, lock my Bitwarden account, or hey, Siri, generate a passphrase. And so it gives you some options for some additional accessibility that you don't even have to open up the app for. So pretty neat. But I definitely want to emphasize here that your iOS device does not have access to any of the encrypted data inside of your vault. This is only for just doing some account actions. So it's 100% still completely secure.
And as a reminder, this is currently coming soon, so this is just a nice little sneak peek for the Bitwarden Vault Hours community, but you should be expecting to see that within the coming weeks. So iOS users, you should definitely get excited.
Actually, you might even see it this weekend, because I just got the alert that the iOS app has been approved for distribution. So it's already on its way out.
Cool. Well, thank you for showing that, Ryan and Casey. It's really exciting stuff coming to iOS / almost here, and dynamic colors to Android. All right. Well, I thought I'd talk a little bit about travel. So for those who don't know me, I'm a huge travel buff. I love to travel. And with the summer travel season upon us, at least, currently in the US and in Europe, I don't know about those down south, but traveling in the summer comes with some stresses, but Bitwarden is here to make your travel experience a little bit easier. So these are some practical tips that I often use while traveling, and about a month ago just got back from a trip and have used some of these. Number one, I often use Bitwarden identities to store very personal information for myself and my family members. Information such as our passport IDs, not only our passport ID numbers, the text of that, but also digital scans of our passports. And actually, I used this about a month ago, trying to get back on a cruise ship with my 4-year-old. So I had to present his passport, left it in our cabin, opened up Bitwarden, downloaded it, and showed the agent a scan of the passport and got in. So really love utilizing Bitwarden for this functionality. Before I go on a trip, I often make sure that all of my login credentials to like my hotel website, airline site, etc., have strong passwords. And if I don't have them within Bitwarden, I put them in Bitwarden and use the password generator to generate a unique, strong password for that account. I also make sure to enable MFA whenever possible and keep those tokens right in Bitwarden. It's very easy and safe to store those and really just have them on my phone whenever I need them. So while I'm traveling, usually I travel with my phone. Obviously, sometimes I bring my laptop along too, just to have a little something extra. With both my phone and my laptop, I of course use autofill to securely and quite easily sign into my apps and sites whenever I need. I also utilize custom fields within Bitwarden and create custom fields for identifiable information such as my airline loyalty number or my hotel loyalty number. And so this is really helpful to keep that data within your vault, but kind of separated in its own specific field. I also occasionally go to Airbnbs that have like door codes that you need to get into the door or whatnot. I store that information within Bitwarden, and if I need to share with a family member or traveling companion, I can quite easily do that. For people who don't have Bitwarden, I can share outside Bitwarden with Bitwarden Send, and it's super helpful, super easy, and just a great thing to have on my phone at all times. Outside of Bitwarden, I usually, public Wi-Fi is kind of inherently insecure. So I like to, have a VPN on my phone and on my laptop, just making sure our connection is safe and we're safe while we're traveling. I mean, no one wants their information compromised, let alone while they're traveling. You don't want like your credit card compromised, your passwords compromised. So keeping that all within Bitwarden has been incredibly helpful for me. And so I hope some of these tips are really helpful for you guys while you're traveling out there. And yeah, safe travels and stay safe.
Yes, I feel like you can't talk about travel without sharing, especially since you're a travel buff. Like, what are some of your favorite destinations?
Oh man, you're gonna get me going here. So I'm a huge travel nerd and collect credit card points, and so I could have a huge whole conversation on that. But Thailand was an amazing experience, probably one of the best places. It was years ago. It was in 2017, so I feel old just talking about it. But Thailand has been amazing. But just like locally here within the U.S. too, it's just fun to get out there. I've been to 34 different countries. It's been some that don't even exist anymore. So East Germany, West Germany. But yeah, it's been a pleasure
Really cool. Thanks for sharing.
for sure.
I think we
All
had
right.
a
Well,
question from MacMind. Chris, will we
uh,
ever have the ability to export backups that include attachments? Ryan, I don't know if you have any insights to that. I think that that's something that community has been asking for. It has been under consideration. Team is exploring. I don't know if there's an
Oh,
update. I think in the meantime, people do leverage the Bitwarden CLI to export attachments.
actually, this is already out. We talked about it last Vault Hours,
Oh,
exporting attachments, if you recall. So now you can export your Bitwarden Vault, and all the attachments are included. It's actually pretty darn awesome. I included a blog for that in the chat. So if you look over in the chat, that's already been answered. So yeah, it's really
cool.
awesome. And so it does not. It requires a specific update version. The latest is probably the best of last month. I posted this blog on April 28th. So if you have the version that is at least 4 or 2025.5, you should be able to do it. Initially, you were only able to do this through the web app, but now we've added the ability to do it for pretty much everything except for mobile. So now you could just go and do a Vault export, and you want to choose the one that says .zip with attachments.
Great. Never mind what I said then. Thank you.
Thanks for proactively answering that, Ryan. All right. So next up is Adam on our team. We'll be discussing how to unlock the browser extension with your biometrics.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So this is something that, as I joined Bitwarden last September, I sort of had to get to grips with and figure out, what combinations of apps and that support biometrics. And of course, as Bitwarden has continued to evolve and release new features and make changes, so have operating systems. So I thought this would be a good way to share what are the current combinations that are required in order to use biometrics, whether you're traveling like Chris and globetrotting, or you're just trying to unlock your browser extension in the easiest way possible. So for Windows specifically, there is now the Microsoft Store that most of you are probably familiar with, but just in case you're not, there is a built-in app store in Windows now, if you're using the latest versions, where you can download your favorite apps just like you can on other devices. It used to be that we required the Microsoft App Store version of Bitwarden to support biometrics, and that has changed for a number of reasons, but just know now that you need the standalone app that you can download from bitwarden.com as one way to get it, probably the preferred way. And you install that on Windows, and then I'll go through the process in a minute. So on Windows, just standalone app. On the Mac OS side of things, it's kind of the opposite. You need the App Store version of the Bitwarden app. So if you've been using the version that you've downloaded on bitwarden.com/download for a while, and all of a sudden your biometric unlock for your browser extension has stopped working, that is likely why. So you would just need to uninstall the side-loaded version, go to the Apple App Store and download the new version. The nice thing is that even though If you delete that app or the side-loaded version that you've been using for a while and reinstall the App Store version, your data is still there. So it's just a matter of re-signing in, and it's quick to get back up and running. Now, once you get the right versions of the apps, the process to get this set up is you'll want to go into the desktop app first and set up biometrics. The link down at the bottom is a great page that takes you to all of the different detailed instructions on how to get biometrics set up. So you can follow that specific flow for your specific combination of OS and desktop app and browser extension. But basically, it's go into the desktop app, enable biometrics, and then go to your browser extension, go to settings, account security, unlock biometrics. You can see that checkbox kind of grayed out above, and you'll get this awaiting confirmation from desktop app. You'll get a fingerprint phrase that you can confirm. And then once you confirm, that will enable biometrics in your browser extension, and now you're off to the races. So it's a little bit of setup. You need, the right combination of applications, but once you get there, you'll be glad that you've done the work and you've enabled biometrics, because it is definitely an easy and slick way to unlock and access everything in your vault and make sure that it's secure. And that using biometrics can also enable you to lock your vault more frequently. So if you have some sort of timeout because you don't want to have to unlock your vault regularly, with biometrics you can do instant lock. It's just as easy as using Windows Hello or Touch ID or Face ID to get back into your vault. So definitely recommend using biometrics if you haven't yet. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's been interesting. It's so easy these days just to log in with your fingerprint. It's great. All right. Now we're going to talk to Don, who's going to talk about browser extension persistence.
Yeah, thanks. And to follow up, Adam showing us how we can make it easier with logging in, we want to let you all know that we're making it easier to add data and edit data in Bitwarden using the browser extension. So as of 2025.6.2, the browser extension is now going to cache that data for around 2 minutes. So if you've had any issues where you maybe clicked out or closed the window by mistake, that data will now persist. So if you start entering some item name, maybe the credentials, the username or password, that will persist if you click back into the browser extension window. So this has been a long requested feature, and we're happy to share that this is now available. So when you get access, let us know what you think. And now we're going to jump into a big community question. There was a lot of chatter in the community recently about the articles about the 16 billion credentials leaking. Even though most of those were already pre-existing data sets, it is a big reminder that we need to be mindful of our password health. So the question this week or this month is, with the recent huge password data leak, how to see if I am compromised? So awesome question from our Reddit community, and we'll just jump to the next slide. So you might be asking, how can Bitwarden help with this? So I just wanted to put a couple slides together to remind us all of the best practices. Casey overviewing that data about passwords is a great reminder. Some of our previous reports have shown that a lot of users still don't use 2FA in general. So we're going to walk through a couple different slides, but first and foremost, always make sure that you have a long, strong, and unique master password. That's both for Bitwarden and for your email provider. The next thing you want to do right away is set up 2FA for your Bitwarden account and and your email provider as well. And that's when you dig into Vault Health reports that we mentioned in the previous Vault hours. Just remediating any flagged items such as reused or exposed passwords, and paying close attention to any accounts that don't have 2FA. So I'm going to drop the blog link here in the chat, and then we'll go to the next slide. So strong passwords, for anyone that's not doing this already, all the Bitwarden clients have a built-in generator. Administrators can enforce policies to make sure that whatever is created here for a team or a family will meet for enterprise teams will meet that requirement. And this is available on the Bitwarden website in the footer, the web app, the browser extension, desktop, and mobile apps. So it takes all the work out of it. You shouldn't have to make these by scratch. For anyone new to password managers, instead of maybe saying your regular password, Grandpa 1984 123, and adding different characters each time, we want completely unique credentials, because most times attackers are just logging into reused and exposed passwords. They are not actually hacking in. And two-step login, this is just a little overview, the user's on the left, and just how we have the device we're logging into, and we use that secondary device to authenticate into something. So in this example shown here, the application is Bitwarden. We're using the Bitwarden Authenticator app to protect our identity. If we don't have 2FA enabled, anyone finding those exposed and reused credentials can just log directly into any accounts that they find. So just a reminder that we have free options for everybody, whether that's FIDO Authenticator app or email, and then we have some premium options such as Duo and YubiKey. I'll drop that link in the chat as we go on to the next slide. And then just like we talked about last time, so after we import that data, after we start looking at our account protection for email, for Bitwarden, scaling that to all of our other accounts that are highlighted in these different reports in our web app. So a lot of us just using the mobile app might not be using the web app much, but if you jump on there, you're going to be able to see, depending on your plan, either just the data breach report, which is still great, highlights different pieces of exposed material such as IPs or emails, but you can also, if you have access to these other reports, anything that's been exposed weak or reused, you can easily just click on the items and use that generate button to replace them if you open up the corresponding website. So let us know if you have any questions or other tips that you want to share in the chat with other community members. I'd love to hear what your flow is. And I think that's it. Oh, one more slide. So if you do want to get more involved, head over to bitwarden.com/get-involved. A lot of people asking questions to other security professionals. You can request features, join user programs such as surveys and reviews, and join events. We wanted to call out Open Source Security Summit here. I'm just going to drop the registration link in the chat. That is now open. Now, if you haven't been to that before, we bring together different innovators and industry leaders to explore the future of open source security solutions. It's a free event, so register now to learn more about building trust with customers and consumers. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Don. I just, going back to Don's comment around the 16 billion passwords that were leaked, I think that news broke late last Friday. And as Don mentioned, some of the information is conflated. It was exaggerated. So it's not actually 16 billion new credentials. This is kind of recycled credentials that have been already leaked in the past. And they brought it together and came out with this report. And I think that sometimes it does a disservice to people like us and individuals because with these types of exaggerated news, it takes the attention away from the real issues and indisputable problems. So definitely don't let these crying wolf news headlines lead us to complacency, and definitely still pay attention to ensuring that you have the best security as possible.
It's a good call out. And to follow up on that, different breaches that you might be aware of, you might not hear for a couple months after that actually happens. So that's why it's so important to protect your account, your email, make sure that you have 2FA, because sometimes you don't learn about the breach right away, depending on how that works. So, and when the notification and company reveal that information. So always best to be proactive and put these steps into place rather than having to try and clean it up. On the corporate side, it's always more expensive to try and clean up, some kind of data breach than putting the mechanisms in place to protect it in the first place.
100%. Always utilize those health reports. I do that on my personal account, and it's great. All right, guys. Well, if there are any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in. We're talking about YubiKeys, it looks like. But yeah, we're happy to answer any questions. Also, though, before we go, one more thing, as always, for those who have our regulars here will know, we have our Bitwarden Star giveaway. So if you head over to bitwarden.com/shop, fill out the contact form, tell us that you heard about this through Vault Hours 53, you'll be entered into a drawing to get some of our nice merch. I hear merch is the correct cool way of saying things other than swag, merch, what have you. Get entered to win. Please, if you've won recently, hold off, but we'll notify winners after we draw. So yeah, thank everyone for coming out today on this Friday, whether it's early in the morning, in the afternoon, such as myself, or if it's a Friday evening. Thank you for joining us. We'll stick around here for a couple of minutes. If you guys have any questions, happy to chat through. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining.